For those who don't know, I'm Darlene McLennan, the Manager of the Australian Disability Clearinghouse on Education and Training, or ADCET for short. I'm very excited to be facilitating this session. I've been very fortunate this year to be working with Justin on this symposium and a few other things, so it's been great working alongside him and seeing his passion for UDL. So this session is a hacker's guide to UDL, simple and sustainable and effective UDL strategies. This event is being captioned, well, we hope to have it captioned. We're having difficulty getting our captioner in. So I think we're going to put on the automatic captions for this time being, but hopefully we'll put a link in the chat if we get the captionings and the captioner involved. Captions are working. Okay, thank you, Jane. Jane has let us know. So the captioning is now working, so you can turn that on at the CC button. We also have a OneCap app, so you can open captions in your browser if you would like. As I said, this session is being recorded. It is a very interactive session. If you don't want to be your video, you can turn your video off or on, but it'd be great to have videos on because it is quite an interactive session. I think I'm probably going to leave it to you, Justin, to actually explain how the session will run. So hopefully I haven't forgotten anything, but yeah, so the session will run until just before 5 o'clock. I'll probably come in about 5 or 10 minutes beforehand and wrap Justin up and get final questions. So I'll hand it over to you, Justin, to run this session. It's very exciting. Yay.
Thank you very much, Darlene. And yeah, look, I'm really excited to be involved in the symposium because it's, there's such a need for an approach like UDL in education, and I enjoy spreading the word, and I've seen the light a couple of years ago, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic framework to use. So today's session workshop is called A Hacker's Guide to UDL. So my name is Justin Wylie. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a bearded man with very short cropped hair, almost no hair. I wear dark rimmed glasses, and today I'm wearing, even though it looks black, I'm wearing a green shirt. Green is my favourite colour. I'm a learning designer at CQ University in the Directorate of Learning Design and Innovation. I've had 12 years experience in education, 6 as a classroom teacher and trainer, and then the last 6 in education and learning design. I've found that education and learning design has let me use my passion for inclusion and equity to better create student resources and work with faculty and academics to develop their skills. And about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I had a professional turning point when discovered UDL, and then began my journey on learning more about UDL and accessibility and the implications for students and the effect on their learning, which again comes back to my passion for inclusion and equity. So this session today is going to be recorded. If you don't wish to appear on screen, please hide your camera. As Darlene said, it'll be captioned. And in terms of some housekeeping, if you'd like to use chat for questions or to share your thoughts, please do. Where appropriate, use the hand emoji down the bottom to raise if you want to ask questions. If I don't stop, I can be a bit of a talker. Please use the mic and speak up. And just ensure that when you're doing that, that your background sound is quiet. And if you could turn your mic off when you're speaking, that would be wonderful. So first, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live. And I'd like to say that I respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we work, live and learn. And I pay my respects to the First Nations people and their elders, past, present and future. I'm joining you from the lands of the Butchulla people here near Gari on the Fraser Coast in Queensland. And so Galangor Jali, or welcome, and please feel free to share your location in the chat as well. Okay, so in today's workshop, I'm just going to explain why I chose the title Hacker's Guide to UDL. I'm going to give you the option to use a shared document to capture your thoughts and ideas. I've seen this in a few sessions, so you don't need to, but if that's the way you work and would like to keep yourself busy, there's an option there. please be aware, I'll explain that again in a second. Then I'm going to show you through some hacks, creating an accessible Word document, and that'll be about 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll go through activity 1, which I'll provide you with an inaccessible Word document, and we can step through the process again together. After that, I'd like to show you accessibility hacks and UDL hacks for adding that same content to an LMS. And in our keynote today, Cheryl was explaining, that basically we want a HTML version of a page and a Word version of a page, and that ideally covers a whole range of learners and inclusive practice and flexibility. So it's a good starting point. Then activity 2 will be a bit optional because not everyone has access to an LMS. So we might sort of work that into the questions and sharing from there. So in terms of the shared document, there's a QR code there you can use to access it, and it's adding your thoughts, ideas, or questions. Now, sometimes these shared documents get really busy and can be very distracting for people. So just ask that when you're not adding something, there's a little column on the right that's a yellow column. And in fact, I'll just open that up now. If you could just park your cursor, basically, and then it'll stop distracting people and flashing all around the screen. Now, just check that I'm sharing the document now, Darlene.
I couldn't find my mute button. No, we're not seeing the document yet. We're just still seeing the URL and the.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll have to come back to that one. I'm not sure we're going to get there. But basically, there's a yellow column. Keep your cursor over there. And I just want to make the point that there's no single way to implement UDL. I want to be straight about that. There's many different approaches. And the more I learn in my practice as a learning designer, I adapt my practice. So things I used to do, I may change in the near future once I get some new knowledge or a new approach as well. Okay. So why a hacker's guide? So a hacker's guide, or a hacker's this or that, really is talking about a mindset of exploring and mastering a topic through unconventional or innovative means. So I'm just going to show you some practical tips and hacks that I use to apply to common student resources, just to make it a little bit quicker. I call them low-hanging fruit. They're easy things to achievably build into your workflow when you're creating student resources. So the first demonstration, as I said, I want to do is to create an accessible Word document. So I'm going to be using Word. I'll highlight the hacks, and any links that I use for resources, I'll throw them into the chat. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing because I don't seem to be able to switch between the documents properly. Hopefully this will show you the Word doc.
I was going to offer to sing, so I'm glad you found it, because that would have been terrible.
Thank you very much. Okay, so essentially what I've got here is a document that I might come across that an academic might provide me, and they've spent a lot of time putting together resources, and they've been creative and use colour in a way that they feel is engaging and appealing to students. And they spent a lot of time formatting, but it may not be accessible. So it does have headings that stand out. It has a structure. It has some images and some multiple ways of representing content, but there's some definite problems in there which are inaccessible for people with assistive tech, or who are using things like immersive reader and things like that in Word as well to access the materials in flexible ways. So, and I have to say, thank Darren Britton, our great Darren Britton, for this one. So my very first hack is about looking at the document and saying, okay, the heading structure, which we've heard about as being so important to allow people with this to navigate between and to navigate content, and also to build a mental picture which if you were cited, you can do by just looking at the headings and making that, forming that understanding of the structure of the document, skimming to get some understanding. That won't be there necessarily if you haven't used the correct formatting. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to add a table of contents into the document, an automatic one. And so that's under the references heading here, table of contents. And I'm going to pick one of these, and straight up, it gives me an indication to say, okay, I can see that the academic, even though they've made an attempt, they've missed the headings there because nothing's been picked up. Because if the headings were used correctly, they would be picked up and added in here automatically. So what I'm going to start doing through the document and just quickly making some changes to it. So the very first thing I'm going to do is highlight my heading up here, and then I can go to my styles area and I can apply heading 1 as the first one in the document. Now, you've also got, so there should be heading 1, but then under that, it's basically hierarchical. So you need to make sure that you've got a structure that doesn't skip any of the headings, but basically provides a logical structure. And that's going to be shown in the table of contents over on the side. So I've got my heading 1, and here's my second heading. So this is a chapter out of a bigger document. So I'm going to apply heading 2. Now, one of the hacks I've got is that you can also use shortcuts. So if you love using shortcuts, Control-Alt-2 will turn that to a heading 2. And it will basically, I can start moving through the document and making those changes. I can either click heading 2 up here. Again, I can go heading 2. I can see here someone's used some colour for a bit of interest, but colour is not accessible to everyone with colour deficiency issues and things like that, and sometimes other vision issues in terms of colour contrast. So I'm going to remove that there. I'm going to use the stripping tool to remove the formatting, and again, Control-Alt-2 for my next heading. So basically, I'm just going to work through that document. And again, either way you want to do it, I'm just going to change those headings to get them all in the right one. Now that one there, the colours remain. So I'm just going to strip that formatting again and Control-Alt-2 to put my headings in. So I'm just going to skim through as quickly as I can. Something else has been highlighted in a weird and wacky way. So I'm going to remove that colour, strip the formatting, and again, format that. Now, I'm going through and doing this bit by bit. You could, if you were familiar with the document, you could select all, and you could strip the formatting of everything at once and go through and do it that way as well. So either way, strip it all if you're familiar with it. But if you're not, so there's areas like this, which me as a learning designer, I need to remember that I've got to do something with. I'm just going to do it a piece at a time. So keeping on going down, Control-Alt-2, I'll do these headings and get down to the bottom. Strip that Control-Alt-2, strip that Control-Alt-2. And now I've got my headings. So what I'll do is I'll come over to the table of contents and I'll update that table. And straight away, then I can see that now I've got my logical heading structure in place, and I can see that there are some areas in there which I might still need to work on in terms of some content, but it's essentially that structure that allows someone to access it by following links in the table, in the contents table, and taking them directly there. But more importantly, for people with accessibility issues, it also gives that instant overall structure of the document as well. Righto. So the next thing I actually missed out on one of the hacks is I wanted to rename my document. Now, it's really important that documents have a context and show where they are within the system. Students download many documents, so I'm going to rename that. Oh, actually, I can't rename that one. I need to upload. I won't do that at the moment. But what you need to do is make sure that you've got something like a course code, a week, followed maybe by a week or a module, and then a meaningful title. so that when the student downloads this document in their downloads folder, they can easily find it and make sense of it as well, because you can often find many documents called, week 1 or activity 1, and they might have 10 of those in their downloads folder. So I'm going to start working through the document now and looking at some other accessibility issues that need to happen. So I've done my styles. Now, it's really important that when you're showing information that you don't just rely on colour. My own son has colour deficiency issues, and he would see that as black. He wouldn't see that standing out. So again, I'm going to strip that formatting and I'm going to make it bold instead. So if I want someone to notice something in particular, use bold to make it stand out. The same for this one here. I'm going to strip that formatting and make it bold, so that again it's got a way of standing out, but it's not something that excludes people. Okay, so I'm coming down here and I'm going to look at this image, and I'm going to check if it's got a text alternative, because again, people with screen readers and braille readers won't be able to get the context of that image in place. So if I right click and I go view alt text, I can see here that there's one that's been automatically generated, and Word does go through and do that for you, but it's not very effective and doesn't really apply to the context. So I'm going to change that to something like a word cloud gamification, reading words such as, what are some of the bigger ones there? Badge, achievement, reward. And reward. So I've given it more of a context. Now, the other thing to be aware is that in Word, now this is something that someone may wish to tell me differently, but I believe that when you have images that float to the right, they can be difficult with screen, they can provide difficulties for screen readers and assistive tech. So again, I'm going to, well, not right click, I'm going to go to my formatting settings, and I'm just going to say, put it in line with the text. So I'm going to copy that out, cut it out, and I'm going to place it underneath the content in line with the text, and just make it a little bit better. What I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to give it a label. So I'm going to go to the references area, and I'm going to insert a caption on this image. So I'll highlight it, I'll click insert caption, and I'll give it figure 1, word cloud of gamification. Okay, and then if I close that and pop it in, I'll need to make it a little bit smaller to fit. It's now got a caption that gives an explicit explanation of what the image is. And we'll come back to that later again when we use our contents area, and we're going to make a table of figures as well. So moving on through the document is another image that I'm going to put in line with the text. And I'm just going to move it down underneath here and stretch it out. And again, then I can add a caption to it. Oh, so, yes, figure 2. An online collaboration session using video. So again, I've given it a context so that it has some meaning, and then my alt text, sorry, a group of people looking at the camera. I'm going to say a group of people using a collaboration tool. So I've given it some more context. Okay, continuing through my document as I'm exploring it, I'm seeing here that, okay, there's a table that's put there. Now, we often use tables for laying out purposes just to arrange content, but really a table should be used to add meaning. So something like this here, it's actually going to be better used as just a list of content. So what I can do is I can select my table, and then I can Oh my goodness, I've forgotten where to do this one. Convert to text. Okay, so I'm just going to convert to text, and then I've got a little bit of tidying up to do to make it make sense. So basically, tables can be very problematic for assistive tech if not set up properly. So if there's no reason for using them, then we shouldn't really be doing that. So I'm going to select all that. I'm going to strip the formatting again out of it, and then I'm going to apply a style to that one as well. So I was over here, I was to heading 2, so I'm down to heading 3 because these are subtitles. Oh, sorry, that's heading 2. These are heading. Just aware of time, so I may not do everything in the document. So basically, again, I've just decided that instead of having something as a table, I can make it more accessible and flexible just by putting it back as text. There was no reason to have that in there at all. There's a block of text here I can see that's in a different font. So again, I can strip the formatting out of that and make it just the normal font that's included. I have a diagram here, like an infographic or a complex diagram it's called, so it's showing a bit of information. So again, with something like this, I want to make sure that I show, I give a simple alternative text, and then I probably want to include a long description of that item somewhere in the content itself to give people with assistive tech an explanation of what it actually is for. So I'm going to say that the diagram's alt text is inclusive assessment options. Just correct that there. Spelled with great. Inclusive assessment options, but then what would be great to do is to refer to that diagram below. So I'm going to add a caption again to it, and it's figure 3 now, and I can copy that. I'll just type the same thing in there. Inclusive assessment options. And then in my main content, I can actually say figure 3 shows some examples of inclusive assessment options. I'm just going to bump that up. I realize that's quite small. Such as podcast, written assignment, and etc. I'm just going to add that in. But basically, you refer to the complex diagram within the content means that everyone can access it. No one's excluded from that content if they can't see it for some reason or can't access it. So yeah, putting long descriptions in the main content is another important hack to be aware of. Okay, so if I keep moving through the document, I've got a table here. And this is something we come across a lot where someone copies and pastes a picture of a table and it's completely inaccessible. So it's something that really needs to be remade as a table, or if it doesn't need to be a table, maybe it can just be, as I said earlier, some headings and some paragraph text as well, just to explain it. But another hack that I've found is that there's different websites that are available, and this one here, not that one. This one here, which I will pop into the chat, is a great way. It does online OCR. So I'm going to select a file, and I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do this one quickly first because it's a very neat image, which was a high quality image. And when I upload it and then convert it, it has a little bit of a process. And then down here below, it's going to say download the output file.
So Justin, are you expecting us to see that website, or we're still seeing the document?
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry.
Screen 2. How's that?
Yep, there we go.
Yep. Sorry, guys. Okay, so basically I've selected a file, I've uploaded it, and it was quite a neat version of a table. I've converted it, and then I can download the output file. And if I open that, I then have a version of the table that I can copy and paste into my Word document and adapt. Now, the issue is something like this, which is quite soft and fuzzy, it doesn't work as well. So you really need to select the file type as well. If I did that one, I'm going to find that there's going to be some spelling errors just because it's not as neat an image in the first place. But anything that shaves off some time in working with your content is worthwhile. So this will have still a little bit of a think, and I'll open it up. And again, there I've got my document, and if I scroll in, I can see that it's done a pretty okay job, but I can remove all that formatting, and then I can change the sizes, etc., to make it something that I can actually use. If you're a really fast typer, you don't need to worry about this. But as I said, the quality of that image that you're going to use in the first instance is going to impact what you get out of that one there.
So Justin, sorry, just someone asked, like, what file did you use? Like, so I think Elizabeth answered a PNG file. Was that
PNG,
yep.
JPEG? I think you can use a GIF there as well. Now that's just one website. There's plenty of them out there, so it's just one that I happen to use quite regularly. Okay, here we go for time. So we talked about figure and caption. We talked about tables. Okay, so another hack that's quite useful is if in a document, I'm just going to go to a new page. If in a document you're inserting something like a smart object or something like that in Word, smart art, so something like this. If I just add some text in here, now, sometimes it can be accessible, sometimes it's not. But if I want to just make sure that it's going to be accessible to different assistive tech, what I can do is I can copy that. And if I delete that out and right click, I can say paste as a picture. And so what it does is pastes it as a single object, which then I can add alternate text to. And it means that there's no issues. PowerPoint in particular has a problem with this, where you group objects together and they don't read out in order very well, and it makes it a frustrating experience for someone using assistive tech. Okay. Right, so once we've finished working on the document, what I'm also going to do then is, I'm going to add, first of all, I'll update my table just to make sure I haven't missed anything. There you go. There's some other things that just pop back in because of the headings I gave them. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly add a table of figures. So the table of figures gives you some different options to pick from, but basically it allows for, oops, I should have done that down there. Okay, and basically this allows for a really quick way for people to access the images that are included in the document as well. So you're providing flexibility. Someone's thinking about, oh, I saw that graph earlier, it's a 25-page document, where do I find it? You can quickly allow them to use the table of figures to be able to click through to those images really quickly. So there you go. I've gone through to the gamification one quickly from there. So I've gone through and done some of the changes, but it's really important that you make sure that you use the accessibility checker. So I'm going to go to review and I'm going to click on the accessibility checker, and it's going to highlight some issues. Now, it won't highlight things like missing headings, so that's stuff you need to do manually, but it does highlight things like images missing descriptions. So I can see here that there's that table, that horrible table, which is totally inaccessible to most people, but if you have to have it in there for some reason, add a description and explain that a table of experiences and simulations. But to make that one accessible, you really need to recreate that one as well. So there you go. I've got no accessibility issues with that document, and I can save it out, and it's basically ready to include my LMS as a resource. Now, I'm just looking at the time, Darlene, and I'm thinking that given I was going to do a demo, get people to work on this themselves, I think we might just skip straight through to the LMS and then have some more questions and answers at the end. So my apologies, everyone, for taking a bit longer for that.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Justin.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to transfer content from our accessible document into the LMS. And I'm also going to provide the document there as an alternative method of representation so that students can download it. And again, as I said earlier, use it in those different and flexible ways that people use with Microsoft products and their own assistive tech or Windows settings on the computers or on Macs as well. So what I'll do now is I'll just go through to an LMS. Now, LMSs are fairly simple, similar, but they have their own idiosyncrasies. I'm using Moodle demo at the moment. But what I wanted to show you is, again, just some quick ways of checking something that maybe has been given to you or has been done for you, just to make sure that it's accessible. So I've got here just a page, a HTML page, and it looks pretty good. So it's got a heading, it's got some subheadings there broken up. There's more that could be done to it, but essentially it looks like it's right to go. But there's a great extension for browsers, and I believe it's available for Firefox and Edge as well. And this one here is called Headings Map. And what it does is just shows you all the headings in a document. And this is the big thank you to Darren Britton, who showed me this. And it's a great way to be able to see if you've included all the headings that you are required within the page. So I can see straight away that there's a heading 1, but there's no other headings under there, even though they've been manually set as bold and a bit larger. It doesn't have the heading structure. So someone using assistive tech is not going to be able to navigate this very well at all. So there's going to need to be some remediation done on that. Turn that off and I'll go back to another example. Okay, so here's one that's transferred from Word with the correct styles. So this one basically, instead of being just manually bolded and set to a font size, it's using the correct heading styles. And if I turn on Headings Map again, you can see over on the left that now I can see that logical heading style that shows me all of the headings in order moving down the page. Now, your LMS won't necessarily start in your content page from H1. In Moodle, it starts from H3 in the WYSIWYG editor areas where we can add or edit content. So don't worry that there's stuff missing there, that's all okay. This page itself starts with providing multiple means, heading 3, and then skipping down through the subheadings. So that's essentially what we need to be mindful of with an LMS, is that we've got that correct structure there as well. Okay, and right, so what I'll do then is I'm just going to copy the content across to a new to a new page. So excuse me one sec. Okay, in edit mode, and I'm going to add that new page. So I add an activity or resource, and in this case, it's just a HTML page. And I'm going to give it a title. So the title for this particular one is Finding Multiple Means. So I'll add that in there. And I'll go down to my WYSIWYG editor area. So again, these are all different on the different LMSs, but similar enough to be able to make sense. Now, with my content, so that's the inaccessible one. Oh, sorry, that's the inaccessible one that we were working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the content and I'm going to copy it across. So I'll select all, copy, and then I'm just going to paste that into my WYSIWYG editor area. Now, unfortunately, if you just paste straight in from Word, it's going to bring a whole lot of word formatting and things like that that don't necessarily do very well for LMSs and for assistive tech. And you can see there's all sorts of gobbledygook and stuff in the background there. So a better option is to paste as plain text. So I always either right click and say paste as plain text. There's not one in here. I think there's this option here says paste as text, and it strips all formatting out of it, or should strip all the formatting out of it. The other option, shortcut, is Control-Shift-V, which is the hack there. Control-Shift-V removes any of the word formatting that's been placed in there in the first place. So I don't need my table of contents. I don't need my heading there. I don't need my chapter heading because it's the title of the document, but I do need these headings. So this is going to be the first style that I'm going to apply. So I can see here that Moodle only allows me to go from H3 to H6 in the WYSIWYG editor. So I apply that style for H3. And again, I go through my content and just make sure that I've added all of those, styles in. Oops, yeah. So I've noticed here that there's an image that I need to add in here as well. So I'm going to go up to insert the image, and I'm going to browse and find my image of the gamification, and I'm going to upload that file. And again, I'm going to give it a description in there, so I can actually go back to my Word document, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to copy that alt text, and I'll apply the same there, so I'm not wasting time. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to save it. Okay, so now if I scroll through my content, I've got my image there. It's got its, the figure information is carried across, but it's not linked in exactly the same way, but it still gives context, and it's got its alternative text. So moving along, I'll go through to my gamification and interactive elements. And now these are the next heading down. So I'm going to go for heading 4. Do a little bit of tidying up there with the formatting. And that one there just hasn't been set properly. So got a little bit of code in there that's stopping it from working correctly. So I'm just going to leave that one for the moment. I'm going to go heading 4. Oh, doing the same thing. So I've got a paragraph tag or something like that in there that's causing a problem. So I'm still going to skip that into there. Heading 4, there you go. Again, I'm just aware of time, so I'm not going to go the whole way through, but what you want to make sure that you do is go through and have all those headings set appropriately so that when we save and display that document, and use something like headings map, we can see again that we've got our structure that's coming there. So we've got our chapter up here, we've got our title, for the page, and then we've got the subheadings and everything like that underneath it in order. Okay. Now there's we're rapidly running out of time. Does anyone have any questions? First of all,
there's quite a few questions in the
cool.
Q&A box. So do you want to go through those?
Sure thing.
Yep, no, that's great. All right. So, and it's been fabulous. A couple of people have been answering as well. So thank you to John for doing that too. So Claire asked, I'd be interested in hacks relating to accessible digital interactivities rather than documents. Do you talk about these at other times, or is there any other sessions you'd know, I suppose, about?
Yeah, look, there are using things like H5P. Again, there's little hacks and tricks that we've come across for using those, but I wasn't planning on talking about them today as we've only got an hour. But that's certainly something we could follow up in our community of practice or something like that, talking about some of those ways to do things. There's certain things like being able to add, say, a single choice set of H5P as a textual input, which just saves a bit of time rather than doing them one by one. You can actually do them as a group if you formatted your questions correctly.
Yep. Excellent. I'm also going to put a link into the chat. We worked with UTS in creating a range of content on ADCET as well, which included some of the interactivity that might be quite useful for people to access as well if they haven't seen it as well. Now, so John did answer this, but I might ask anyway. In reviewing an online guide, Penny's new to UDL. I'm reviewing an online guide at the moment where the colour is central to using the document, e.g. black text equals template text, red equals instructions on how to use the document, green text example. I'd love to know of or some good UDL alternatives to this approach.
Yeah, look, you can't rely just on colour, unfortunately, to give meaning, so you do need to do something else. So probably adding just a bit more explanation, a bit more explicit instruction as to what the areas are, or using labels or something like that. You know, maybe there's a portion of the box that can have like a background instead of a color. You can have the slashes or the dots or things like that also then give someone the meaning. So if you say that the yellow area, the yellow dotted area background color or something like that means this certain thing, then you're giving that extra bit of explanation. You're explaining what it is for people that can't actually see it, but also giving some other alternatives besides color.
Excellent. And there's some answers there too to that question, which is great. Adding alt text to images takes a lot of time. I think sometimes it's just more the thinking it takes sometimes to, but are there any hacks on how people can do this who are time poor, which I think most of us are?
Yeah, well, using words ones to start with can be a good basis. You know, so let it do the automatic ones and then go through and see if you can use any of those. Like I did half a sentence and then modify it to give it more context. But it's about practice, and there's some good guides available for creating alternative text and being concise. You know, that's the key. It's being very concise, to the point. And if it's a complex image, such as a diagram or an infographic or a graph or something, that's when you need that long description to give it meaning. And it's ideally in the text.
That's great. Beth's asking, are there particular font or specific colours that are more user-friendly than others?
So basically your LMS, so in terms of a Word document, you want high contrast. So sticking to the black and white as much as possible, just black text as much as possible. That also using a Word document allows students to change those things themselves. So in a Word document, a student might decide that their heading 1, they want to be bright orange and size 30. If you give them it to as a Word document, they can make that change themselves very easily. So sticking to the generic colours of your LMS, that's controlled by someone above our level, and not using colours as much as possible is ideal. You know, it's a bit of a balance. You want to make things engaging, but you don't want it to look like a bag of lollies with all sorts of colours. That means that it distracts people from being able to focus on the content. So I'd advise with sticking to very generic colours, generic fonts, sans serif fonts. And again, with having a Word document or even with an extension in a browser that's in a web page that's set up properly, students can control the font. So there's dyslexia font, for instance, and I think I had it here somewhere. Open Dyslexic for Chrome. So I can use that browser plugin, or a student can use that browser plugin, and because this has been set up correctly, they can change the font, etc., to the dyslexia font. Now they can do that in their browser or in their operating system themselves as well, just to make it more personalised to their own particular needs. So I'll just turn that off again.
That's great. Excellent. Another question is, if you verbally refer to figure 4, would a screen reader user be able to locate that figure if you used auto figure numbering in Word?
Well, they could do a search for it. So yes, they could use, you know, Alt F and search and find it. And that figure table at the very start, it's also just a really convenient way of finding things. So again, you're just by doing that, if you're already labeling the images with captions, throwing that in the front there is just an extra little bonus that means that people can access it in a quick and flexible way. So you're sort of allowing the students who are busy, time poor, to be able to find those resources quickly and easily.
Yeah, excellent. Now, somebody's asked for a tip sheet to remind us where to find things on the toolbar, please.
Yes,
I don't know if that's capacity to do that, or
I will be doing that. I am unfortunately, I'm going to say the dog ate my homework. I've got a sheet 9 tenths done, but I will make that available.
That's great.
For
so, and this is being recorded, so it'll also be available on the ADCET website, and we'll add the tip sheet to that as well. So you can. I just imagine myself re-watching this and slowing you down, Justin, and going and, you know, practicing on another screen of what you were doing. So I was really excited to know that it's going to be recorded and we can keep visiting back. Yes. Now, someone talked about if the document gets converted to a PDF, does any of the alt text heading formatting carrying over? Now, John kindly answered that, but what's your thoughts about PDFs and Word and so forth?
Look, I agree with Cheryl this morning. I think PDFs can be problematic in setting them up and remediating them afterwards if they're not right. So I think if you allow a student the option of downloading a Word doc, they can create a PDF themselves if they use it, or they can use it in different ways. But I think that's an experience thing. So if you're not very experienced, it is tricky to get it right and make sure everything's included. But the question about the headings and things like that carrying over, yeah, they'll come across, as John said. But there are some things that don't quite work right when making them as a PDF, and you have to go back and change things. So in terms of sustainability, again, all of this is about stuff that you can do quickly. Now, I know I've sort of skimmed over a lot of it today, but it's about modifying your practice, being aware of it in the first place, modifying your practice, and just building it into what you do. So every Word document that you make, whether it's for someone in your team, in your uni, or a student, everything should be accessible. We have colleagues and workmates who have disabilities and may not be able to access resources in a easy way. So, you know, it's a whole of institution approach, really. Yeah,
and I must admit, you know, I've probably been, you know, doing accessible Word documents for about a year, and I realize I don't think about it anymore. Like, I remember initially that initial, you know, it seemed clunky and whatever. Now it is just what you do. So I think, you know, if people are willing to kind of make that first step and start to do it, then you'll suddenly realize actually it just becomes very easy. So that's fabulous. Well, that's all the questions. We've had some fabulous chat. People have been putting links in and so forth. Is there any final comments you want to make, Justin?
Look, I just, again, from our keynote speech today, I can't remember the exact comment that Cheryl made, but it was about being kind to yourself and saying, look, I can't do it all, and you can't, because it's just unrealistic for people's workloads. But again, if you change your processes and start learning how to do this, as Darlene said, after a period of time, you're going to be doing this as a part of your regular practice. So one thing I didn't really highlight is the fact that after creating an accessible page, then also upload that file, that Word file that you've created, as a document that's available. So you've got the two resources, the HTML, or in Moodle, it might be a lesson or something like that. But then underneath that, have the Word document so that people can download it as well and use it flexibly. And that also makes your job easier when you come back to make changes. And again, there was that comment earlier about things being worked on and remediated, and then they weren't carried through to the next year. So if there's those two simple locations, the master document's already accessible, make a change to that, continue that change through the HTML, and then basically it's going to be sustainable for you to keep on top of.
Well, that's brilliant. So thank you. And thank you everybody for participating and the interactivity on the Q&A and in the chat. It's great. It's been fabulous to see some of the responses and answers. I'm just posting in the chat now is a link to our poster presentations. I encourage you all before next till next Thursday, this Thursday, to have a look at those poster presentations. They're all up online for you to engage in. And yeah, thank you, Justin. It was wonderful to go through that, and seeing the chat, people have really found it of value. So well done for sharing those hacks.
Thank you.
Go well. Yep. And hopefully many of you can join us again on Thursday. So for another fabulous interactive and an informative session, including Thomas Tobin. So I look forward to seeing many of you then. Take care. Have a great night. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.